This Week in Radio Tech, episode 184, is brought to you by the Telos HX6 talk show system. It's perfect for creating great content with compelling voices. 6 lines and 2 hybrids that sound great. On the web at telos-systems.com.
And now, our feature presentation.
Twert.
Engineer to the stars? Well, someone's got to take care of those national and big city broadcast prima donnas. Stories of Dan Rather, Bill O'Reilly, and more.
All right, calm down. He says that to everyone.
This calls for immediate discussion.
What's up, Doc?
All your days are belong to us.
From his palatial office of important business,
or in a choice hotel in a distant land.
This is Kirk Harnack.
What's it really like? Well, Tom, Ray, and Chris Tobin join me with life lessons on engineering for the stars.
You're dialed in to This Week in Radio Tech.
Hey, welcome in. It's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. Yes, the engineer extraordinaire, the magnificent Harnack. No, none of that. It's the show where we talk about radio technology and the engineers who make it all happen, because there are some fascinating things going on in broadcast radio technology. Everything from, well, the stylus on the turntable, yeah, we still use those, to SIP telephony technology, which is just amazing. We still take care of transmitters, transmission line, antennas, and towers. I was talking to a guy just the other day on Facebook about climbing towers. Holy cow, he still does it. It's just an amazing world we live in of electronics and the physical world of engineering, and we're here to talk about it. There's politics in this too, and there's science, and well, let's just move on. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. I work for the folks at the Telos Alliance, so I'm very glad to have the Telos sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Also with us, we have Chris Tobin. He's live on location at the CCBE. Hey, Chris, how are you? Glad you're in.
Hello, Kirk. Yes, I'm at the Central Canada Broadcast Engineers Conference here in Barrie, Ontario. It's an annual get-together of the broadcast engineers and managers across Canada, and I'm here at the Horseshoe Resort. The folks were very kind enough to allow me into a suite that has, as you can see, a fireplace.
That's awesome. I've been there. Listen, you tell me if I'm right. To get to Barrie, you fly into the Toronto airport, I don't know, YYZ or something like that, and you get a rental car, and you drive through the horrible, wretched traffic, and then you finally get out the north side of Toronto, and then you drive and drive and drive, and you drive past the last McDonald's on Earth, and you just keep on driving and driving. Then you cut off the main road, and you're on a dirt road or something, and you keep on driving even farther, and finally you pull into this golf course resort at the end of the Earth in Canada. Am I close?
Absolutely, yes. It's it is YYZ, the Toronto Pearson International. It's 400 north. It's 77 miles north of Toronto. And yes, you do bear right at the end. You go down the road. You go past the Esso station, 5 kilometers on your right, the Horseshoe Resort. That's it.
I got to tell you, if you're there in the summertime and you play golf, it's an awesome place to be. This event it's getting chilly, I suppose, which is why you got the fireplace. That's great. I don't play golf, so it's just not as interesting for me, but the engineering sessions are interesting. You guys, I guess you're giving a technical talk there, right?
No, this year's the first year I'm not. I was too late to get in, but there are talks on LTE technology, the Opus codec, Omnia. There's also stuff on VoIP-based studio systems. You're familiar with that gentleman who's speaking on that one. Okay. There's also talks about standards for SDI video over IP. There's a lot of stuff going on. That's just Friday. And on Saturday, there's, high efficiency codec, video codec, the H.265. There'll be talks on that from the folks at Tektronix. Yeah. And then on there's also estimating remote site maintenance is going to be talked about from Com Labs. And practical applications of 4K technology. 4K technology for video. I was at IBC last week in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Got to see a 4K projection on a wall of video. I have taken pictures of it. I dare anybody to tell me that this was taken off a video monitor and not a real image that you see. I'll get that together for next week. It was fascinating.
At the CES show this past January, I got to see 4K, and it was amazing. I didn't see it projected. I saw it on pretty big monitors, and then I saw the 8K display and some video that was just Oh, it's a just gorgeous video. The main, well, there was a one video that they showed, and they've got to show stuff that really shows off the detail, right? So there was this enormous field of yellow flowers, and you could, even the last one in the field up by the top of the ridge in the barn, you could almost make out the petals on that one. It's crazy. And then the other video was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go. The other video, go ahead.
The other video was they found a steam engine yard that had a working engine turntable. You know, they turn the engine around like on Thomas the Train to park the, you know, to move the engine somewhere else or park it. And they had the steam engine, enormous, big, belching, oil-laden, grease-dripping, steam-puffing locomotive that you could, you know, had decades of wear on it. I mean, it was just laden with texture, let's say. And the 8K video on that was like jaw-dropping. Like you just felt like you were right there. So yeah, so I've seen the 4K was like, I'm there. The 8K was like, what is going on? So is that the future? Is that where we're going?
Oh, that's that. Well, let's see. I talked to a gentleman for one of the major networks in the United States, and he said that 65% of their production material, the shows that they shoot, are currently geared up and operating in 4K. So I guess 4K, 8K is probably 2 to 3 years away becoming a commonplace thing. So it's happening.
And is it going to be true that with H.265 that terrestrial broadcasters will be able to transmit 4K over the air and pick it up without incredible, or you know, without too much compression?
In the lab, yes, that's what they're claiming should be able to achieve. They should be able to achieve it. I'm hoping to find out tomorrow by Saturday, attending the paper that's being presented and see or hear if that's going to happen.
I wonder how they'll end up making that compatible with all the just the regular ATSC receivers.
They probably won't.
Okay.
Well, we have two receivers. We have one TV for these channels and another TV for those channels.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be the way.
Bring back the spinning wheel, color disc, spinning color disc.
Well, we put see, because current TV is about 2K, right? That's ATSC.
Yeah, roughly 2K.
Okay,
yeah,
roughly 2K. So 4K is about double.
Well, we put the extra 2,000 pixels in the subcarrier.
Which is modulated with AM, not FM.
That's right, in the AM subcarrier. Woo, okay. Are we talking inside baseball here? I don't know. Maybe we are.
No. If people tune in, engineering types should understand what we're talking about.
I think so. You're exactly right.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, that's fascinating. So this really looked real. You know, there is some resolution, and I thought it was something even higher than 8K, but there is some resolution when projected and taking up a good part of your vision. I thought I heard that some experiments had shown that it became indistinguishable from reality, or at least not indistinguishable. Your brain said, "Okay, I'll go there. That's real."
Yes, that is true. There are studies that have done that. Have reported that IMAX is the very closest you can achieve right now. If it's IMAX is set up right and you're sitting in the right, we'll call it the sweet spot in the theater. The movie is shot just right. After about probably 30 minutes into the movie, your mind has now accepted the fact that you're a part of what it sees.
You've seen these displays at NAB where usually it's NHK is showing the latest high-res thing they have. And oftentimes they'll have a camera pointing out of a hotel or at the NAB parking lot, at the Las Vegas Convention Center parking lot, and your brain wants to say that, you know, that looks real. You seen those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At IBC, the BBC technology folks were showing off this, I think it was 8K. Yeah. 8K, 120 frames per second and 240 frames. Some wild stuff for the video. And it was a large screen, about, I think it was 108 inches. It was a huge screen. And for a couple of moments, if you stay focused and kept your field of view within that, within the frame, you got a sense of like, wow, I can almost immerse myself in this video. That's how clear and the resolution is. On the 4K that I was looking at one booth, I think it was the Toshiba booth, they shot a boat out on a lake a fishing boat, a small single-person fishing boat. And the sun must have been overhead because the shadow through the water which was clear. Okay, you could see the bottom of the where they were, say the beach or whatever. You could see the shadow cast from the bottom of the boat onto the sand below, and the depth of field and the clarity. You can actually distinguish between the water, the clean, clear water, the shadow, the person who was in red and yellow. Definitely contrasting colors. It was the sharpest thing I've ever seen of a moving image, where you could actually follow this boat from left to right and see beneath it. Get the perception of seeing beneath it because the water was so clear. That's how sharp the resolution was. It's fascinating.
Where are we going to be when you and I are in our 70s watching television? What's that going to be like?
Probably a holographic room in the house where you'll sit in the middle of the room and everything will be 360 around you.
Man.
Fraunhofer was showing off a 360 camera device with mirrors that was pretty wild. I don't even know how to explain it. If you could picture a cylinder on a tripod, say a cylinder about 1 foot, maybe 2 foot tall, sitting on a tripod, camera tripod, and then if you think of it 45-degree angles from the center of the cylinder are these triangular mirrors.
Yeah.
And at the base of the mirror are the camera lenses, and it pieced together this 360 image. I'm taking a picture of it, and in the picture you can see me off to the left, taking a picture of the picture. It's pretty wild.
I just mentioned we're going to be in our 70s in 20 some years. What about I got a 3-year-old son. In 20 years, he'll be 23. And where's entertainment, television, technology, imaging? Where's that going to be when he's 50? 47 years from now. It boggles the mind. You can't imagine. Now, here's what. Okay, somewhere we run up against the limits or the reasonableness of television production. I know this is a radio tech show. We'll get to the radio, but right now, I mean, I've been on set. You've probably been on set where they're shooting a production, maybe an episodic a drama or comedy or a movie, or even just in a television studio. And that, okay, we're making a slice of kind of reality here. Everything is set up just right. There are set designers, art directors, people who are placing mics in the set. How do you do that when the set is 360 degrees around you? Or the viewer has control? I even think it's got to be difficult. Can you imagine being the new headaches of being a set decorator or an art director or even the director of photography on a show where everything that's in the camera's field of view has got to be perfect because everybody's going to see it? This isn't the difference. This is like the difference between standard def and high def all over again, where we had to change makeup techniques and what we made a set with. Can you imagine the difficulties it's going to be for these people?
Oh, it's going to be huge. I mean, I remember working with the folks at NBC when I was at the Olympics, 2000 Olympics or 2001, and they were just introducing internally and for Olympic coverage a certain number of venues that were going to be shot in HD. Okay, 1080i, and I got to see HD live action video in a control room on a huge monitor, and I'm saying to myself, wow, I can actually see the muscles flexing on the skier's arm. Okay, you could, the tight outfits they wear, you could see the flexing. And right to the side of this monitor is a standard NTSC monitor, 724/68 standard definition, and wow, I'm thinking, wow, look at this, is unbelievable. Then I talked to some of the directors of photography, and what they had to go through, the changing the sets, where traditionally a piece of gaffer's tape on the back of the set will work just fine. Nobody will see it. In high def, you can see the piece of tape that's doing its job. And then I was talking to two of the makeup artists on set, and I was asking them about what are they learning or discovering with HD, and they said, wow, what we discovered is you can't use the traditional methods of makeup, applying makeup. We actually have to use air spray, spray it on, because you could actually see I don't use makeup, so I don't know, but I guess when you're patting it on your face, you can see certain transitions from each time you touch.
Sure.
They're learning this. They just we're just discovering how to make it work with the air spray, spray painting on a person's face. So that was in 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
Now, as you point out, you fast forward to 4K. 4K, 8K, and then do 360 field of view in that resolution, yeah, you're basically, everything you're doing is just real. There is no room for anything other than this is it. It's going to be wild. I don't even know how to, these people in that field are going to be just totally challenged beyond belief.
Wow. All right. Well, things to think about. And this is a show about radio tech, so we're going to jump right into some radio tech stories. But it's fun to think about this kind of stuff. I guess we can also feature how will audio for video change. So now we used to have one speaker on the TV. Then we had stereo for some years, and now we have surround on not every but a lot of shows. And I'll tell you what, it seemed at first, audio engineers were finding new ways to screw up sound with 5.1 surround. More and more shows, I think, are getting it as the tools become better and the knowledge propagates. But still, not every show is perfect, and that's why our sister company, Linear Acoustic, makes some tools to fix bad 5.1 audio. I've heard Fraunhofer doing some things with this sound that's not Pentio, that's a different brand, but this sound that's all around you. There's going to be some wild techniques out there.
Yeah, the audio is going to definitely advance, and radio stations will need to stay in step, at least with the music, and even when they're doing talk. Once the high def stuff, 2K and everything else keeps going the way it is, people will just become accustomed to seeing and hearing sports and talk in a certain presentation. Radio needs to follow the same suit. So if you're doing a sports format and you're covering a ball game or a hockey or whatever, you're going to have to step up your game. No pun intended, but you're going to have to step up how you cover it and create that audible, visual theater of the mind. Otherwise, you will lose out to the folks doing the video and audio together. Even if you're in the car, because the car is going to change.
6, 7, maybe even 8 years ago, Telos started showing surround sound in our booth at NAB. And for, 4 or 5 years in a row, we had a beautiful vehicle there, and the guys from Fraunhofer would come outfit it, or you would come attach a receiver to it, and we showed broadcasters how you can transmit perfectly compatible stereo and surround sound by the MPEG surround method, and it wasn't that difficult to do. You could get surround files. Of course, you could transmit perfectly compatible stereo the way you're doing now, and the surround information was carried in an extra about 16 kilobit per second data stream. If you lose the data stream, you still have sound in all the speakers. It's just no longer actual surround, and this was really cool. And you know what? Nobody was interested. Nobody was. It wasn't that hard to do. Didn't require anything extra except 16 kilobits out of your HD radio stream. And there was other ways to do it too if we thought about it. And nobody was interested. Any idea why?
And that's why the radio industry is in the trouble it's in now.
Just not thinking
I went to those shows. I went to the NABs. I sat in the car. I also worked for a company that was doing some experimenting with that stuff up in New England. And it was just fascinating how people that get to hear it saw what was involved, and they just did not see its potential. They just they came up with many excuses why it wouldn't work. I sat at that booth a couple of times at NAB listening to the people come through, and I was fascinated by this, how much negativity there was.
Yeah. Well, Fraunhofer's MPEG surround method was just really incredible. You can, as I mentioned, transmit stereo, and you have to have the original material with the all the 6 channels, the 5.1 channels or 7.1 if you desire. There were other competing methods that always involved smoke and mirrors. They always involved tucking away a sound, and they're not mono compatible. So you got people with a clock radio, and guess what? Their audio is 3 dB, 5 dB, 6 dB lower than it should be. Certain passages, certain songs. I don't know. We have the technology to do it. We have the technology to do it easily and clean. I know NPR experimented some with this using that other method. I'll think of it in a minute. Maybe you remember the name of it. One good thing about that other method, it was compatible with a whole bunch of receivers out there, or mostly compatible. And of course, nobody has an MPEG surround decoder, even though they could have been added for pennies under big production. But just nobody got interested. Couldn't. Very frustrating. Thought it was the coolest thing in the world. By the way, that MPEG surround method, the same method could be used Nobody's done it, but could be used to transmit mono FM instead of the compatible stereo method we have now, where we transmit left plus right, 19 kilohertz pilot, left minus right, on the double stereo baseband. You can transmit just plain mono FM and a 16 kilobit data stream and have stereo. Actually, be less than 16 kilobits, and have stereo steering, and it would be just awesome and very immune to multipath. Really cool.
That's
and
true.
You know what? If you lost the stream, so what? You got mono audio.
Yeah, you still have the audio. That at the end of the day, no one's going to complain.
And there's no 23 dB penalty for stereo separation, for noise penalty. So
that's right.
Well, hey, let's hit a few news stories, and coming up on the show, Chris Tobin is going to regale us with some interesting stories about home studio work that he's done. And I think it's going to be really, really exciting. I heard a few of these stories over the weekend over several beers and steaks, and you got to hear them too. You're going to like them. By the way, our show is brought to you by Telos and the HX6 telephone talk show system. You can create compelling content for your listeners by putting listeners on the air. That was a tease. That was a tease. We'll do the whole spot just in a few minutes. Hey, so let's. I was looking through Radio World, as I am often want to do, and I noticed that in his. Oh, we do. Awesome. You want to bring him in? Tom Ray, are you there?
Hello.
Tom, howdy.
How are you?
Good. Glad you're here.
Sorry I'm late. Skype wouldn't let me sign in.
Oh, well. You got to pay your Skype bill, dude.
Well, no, it said I changed my password, and it's like, yeah, I did, and I typed my password in. It's the one I always use, and it didn't like me.
Caps lock?
No, I have no idea why. Just didn't like me. At the third time it took, it must have been the charm.
Well, glad you made it. Hey, so Tom, we've been dishing on video and the audio and surround. We're going to hit a few topical stories here real quick. Boom, boom, boom. Just get your opinion on a few of these things, and then. After a quick sponsor announcement, we're going to hear some stories from Chris Tobin about installing celebrity home studios. Tom, you may have a thing to add or two about that, too, since you've been a New York engineer for so long. Let's hit a couple of things. John Bissett, famous for his ongoing column in Radio World, writes, "Humor helps talent on the job." These pictures made it around the interwebs a week or so ago. So he's built some, an engineer here has built some panels. Who was this? Who was doing this? Oh, I thought I had the name right here. Maybe, well, okay. You build a button panel for talent. You got a cough button and a mic on and mic off, and maybe a bring me a glass of water button. And you got some buttons left over sometimes. What do you put on them? Well, how about a sign that says, you push this button, it says free beer. Free beer. And you make it light up or something.
Sign me up.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Here we go. This was Al Peterson. That's who it was. What do you do when you've installed talent control panels and are left with more buttons than you need? Well, Al Peterson uses this as an opportunity to put guests at ease with humor. Now, you bring guests in the studio, and oftentimes they're uptight, right? And so you can put them at ease by putting something humorous in front of them. Al handles studio recording duties at the Radio America Network in Arlington, Virginia. He's a former on-air personality himself. He understands performance anxieties, especially with folks not used to being in front of a microphone. When they ordered new plates with extra buttons in them for the furniture, Al capped the unwired ones with legends. That's the label on it, having nothing to do with anything. He put one on there that said free beer. Also, another one that says Death Ray. That's Tom Ray's cousin, isn't it? Death Ray.
Yes, gamma and my my gamma ray, and. All
right, let's move on. I noticed this. Arbitron was bought by Nielsen. Now, as engineers, for many decades, we didn't have much to do with Arbitron ourselves as engineers, just make sure the station's on the air. But we've had this PPM technology, and that very much involves the engineer. We got to have that PPM encoder in the air chain. Now, Arbitron's been bought by Nielsen. They say not a lot's going to change, but they're going to find, some $20 million of savings somewhere. Any idea if Arbitron's PPM will be changing now that Nielsen owns them?
Hard to say. There's a lot of money to be made in that.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, that was interesting. It's hard to say what's going to happen because there's a lot of money in the people meter situation because the ad agencies wanted the accountability and real-time stats. So, Nielsen, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of controversy with people meter anyway. It's hard to say. I'm not sure how it's going to go.
Well, the technology is very similar that they use. The difference is I think they embed it. Well, they don't embed it in the video. They embed it in the video stream on the television. With the radio, they embed it in the audio. So, but it's the same. It's very, very similar technology. So, don't really know what, if anything, will change.
Yeah, so they may not change anything at all. I know that Arbitron has been making, or at least proposing, changes that are making non-subscribers pretty unhappy with them. Making that if you're not a subscriber in a given market where there are other subscribers, you may be put at more of a disadvantage. So, but they've also been suing some broadcasters who they say have been using their data illegally or without paying for it. So, that's on the one hand part of the business that engineers tend not to be involved in, but boy, that people meter business, that is our responsibility to keep that up and going every moment of every day so the station gets credit for every last listener, and that is just critical. Could mean a good-sized difference in the rate of an ad. So it could make a difference between whether you get a new tube for the transmitter or not.
This is true.
Hey, has anybody tried the new iTunes Radio? Nope.
I have.
Oh, you have?
No, I have not.
Okay. I tried it out. I pay for their iTunes Match service, which is pretty cool if you got 7,000 songs in your inventory and you're not sure which ones you actually bought or not. Now I've got, a new copy of every single song. And I think I bought them all, I think. And they're all in the cloud, so I can play them on any Apple player device. But this iTunes Radio seems pretty cool. I've been listening to some. I made a cello music channel, and it's just been lovely. Although there's a lot of repeats. Maybe there's just not enough cello music in the world. I think iTunes Radio is going to do okay with that. Of course, remains to be seen. They say that Pandora's stock lost $2.50 on the day that iTunes Radio started, but that's just could be a quick overreaction by the marketplace. Let's see. And FCC is ready for LPFM filings. So there's going to be a bunch of filings coming out here pretty soon. Any thoughts about this process? The window opens October 15th. And let's see, how many they are expecting? 7? No, that's translators. Got to be expecting a ton of filings for LPFMs. Tom, you or Chris, you've been involved with LPFM filings at all?
I have not, no. But
neither have I.
LPFMs in the New York Metro are kind of tough to come across.
Yeah. There's got to be clashing goals between FM translators and LPFM filings because they're you still have to have separation to meet all the rules. So I just got a feeling there's gonna be a lot of disappointed people, as there were with the 13,000 or so FM translator applications that were filed. A lot of them which were mutually exclusive. On the one hand, sure. If you can fit a signal in, fine. Fit it in, broadcast, whatever. On the other hand, isn't this the kind of thing that has led to or helped lead to the demise of the AM band? Are there any parallels between just giving out FM licenses willy-nilly at 1 watt, 2 watt, 10 watts, 50 watts, and licensing AM daytimers at 250 watts?
And that's the fear for the FM band. I mean, with recently with the Commissioner Pai at the NAB radio show, and the plan for AM and to put AM translators on and to have more LPFMs. Where are we going to fit all these stations? Are we going to start relaxing the interference regulations? What are we doing?
Well, and even if we relax them a little bit, if we let all these things on, I don't know. It's just so many choices. Choice is good, sure. And you know what? If you want to operate a station at a loss and somebody's paying your bills, maybe a church or a school or a civic organization, or it's coming out of your own pocket and it's your own, playtime, fine. And some of these serve absolutely legitimate purposes, and others I just feel like are people's play toys. If it doesn't interfere with existing broadcasters who have put real money, real big money into being on the air, I guess it's okay. I don't know. I want to make sure that low power broadcasters and have to follow the same rules that full power broadcasters do. Any thoughts about that?
That would be my thing. I have nothing against the low power broadcasting, or if you want to add more to the dial, technically, if you can make it work, fine. But I believe everybody should be following the same rules. So whether you're low power FM or high power FM, whatever you want to call it, you have to follow the same rules. If you can't fit in an allocation because of second adjacencies or first adjacency interference or near field blanketing from the transmitter site, then you don't. That's it. End of story. There is no discussion. There's no, it's a society thing. The neighborhood needs us, or, all world will come to an end because we're not here. There has to be a level playing field. I think that's, look at the college, the non-com ban, what happened there early on when the 80-90 dockets came out and everybody was allowed to move around and do stuff. It became a free-for-all. You had college stations on top of college stations, interference beyond belief, and nobody did anything. And eventually what happened? Nobody listened, nobody did anything because nobody could hear it. So it fell apart. But it shouldn't go that way.
Well, you still have that in the non-com band to some extent, where the spaces are a lot closer, and you still have some of the interference. But I agree with Chris, and I'd go farther to say with the rules. I mean, the rules apply to everybody, and that means that the LPFMs need to abide by the rules too: frequency tolerance, modulation, the whole bit.
Paperwork.
If you want to play, you're playing with the big boys. So let's. And once again, nothing with the LPFMs, nothing against the LPFMs. I'm all for it in many instances, and if they can fit in, great. But they need to play by the rules like everybody else.
Tom, are you on a new microphone? You sound awesome.
I'm on an RE20.
Oh, okay. Well, sounds good.
But then again, I am awesome. So hey.
Stop it. Well, I just hate to see. Look, on the internet, if you're an internet broadcaster, what's another voice? What's another 10,000 voices? There's room for everybody because it's the bandwidth is between you and the server, and it's possible to make more and more bandwidth. It's not possible to make the FM band any bigger without an act of Congress. It goes where it is, and it's not possible to stop FM or AM signals at the border of a county or a town or a state or even a country. So, they follow the laws of physics, and it's not possible, or it's not economically possible, to make receivers that will tune in a station here when there's another one really strong right next to it. And that's what these adjacent channel rules are all about. That's why, in some areas you won't find a station on every FM channel. But if you drive a few miles in any direction, that station that seems blank, there'll be a station there. You drive in one direction, there'll be one station. Drive in the other direction, there'll be another station. Now, of course, I'm talking about mostly east of the Mississippi River and built-up areas. Sure, you can drive out in West Kansas and the Panhandle of Texas and drive for miles in the state. You may not stop anywhere on the dial for a while, but you got to obey the laws of physics, and it's not. There's only so many stations will fit. How do we decide who gets them? Now. I guess I've said all I'm going to say about that. I would hate to see existing broadcasters messed up or approve a situation that results in a mess like we have on the AM band or CB Channel 19. Can you talk to anybody on CB Channel 19 that's not right next to you in the truck parking lot? I don't think so.
But, let's take that step one step further. You don't want to see the existing broadcasters messed up. We're not just talking about the quote-unquote normal commercial high-power big boy broadcasters. We're talking about the LPFMs, and we're talking about the translators out there too. You don't want to see any of them messed up.
Right.
That's true.
if you're an existing LPFM, you're already operating at kind of a disadvantage. Not much power, not much height. You're covering a certain area, but what if somebody comes in and effectively knocks you back even further, even though it may be legal in whatever the rules are going to be. So, anybody have a summary of what Commissioner Pai has said for the AM band? What his overall plan would be, or is he still gathering up information?
I think he's still gathering up information. I mean, you keep seeing articles from dribs and drabs favoring this, favoring that technology and approach, but I think maybe I'm mistaken, but I haven't read anything definitive just yet.
No, I think they were all just ideas at the show, Chris and Kirk. He's throwing things out on the table. A lot of it's good. A lot of it's like putting all the translators on. Well, that's good too. But how do you decide who gets it? B, where are you going to fit them all? Especially on the East Coast. I mean, geez. But no. I mean, there's some good ideas out there, and it's about time we started talking about it because these are problems that have been simmering for a long time. I wonder if you want to improve the AM band incrementally. And I don't think that's a great idea. But let's just say that's the way we go. We don't blow it up like I'm kind of in favor of, but we improve it incrementally. What would it take to get some good number of AM station owners, AM license holders, to shut their transmitters off and never to be heard again? How much money would it take? What if there was some money budgeted with the FCC to say, you know what? Over the decades, we've kind of messed this up. We let too many people on the air. We let too many people believe they're going to get a license, spend money, buy property, build a tower, put in a transmitter, run programming, and be able to make a viable business. Now, we never promised you could make money. That's not the point. But we did, keep approving more and more stations and let more people come in. So tell you what we're going to do. This is the FCC talking. Tell you what we're going to do. Anybody who wants to give up their station for, let's say, a payment of $200,000. We'll pay you $200,000. You turn your station off the air and turn the license in, never to come back. And some people will take that. Then maybe a year later they come back and they say $400,000 or $500,000. Any takers? And maybe over 10 years we get a lot more stations off the air. And those who are left are people who were apparently serious about, it was worth more money to keep and run their station than it was to take a payoff from the FCC. I know of plenty of AM station owners who would take a payment to shut their transmitter off. Oh gosh, I mean, there's a station not too far from the house here where, matter of fact, I just kind of checked them out this weekend because I have a client who was considering buying a station in another state. That's on a frequency this station has a construction permit for. And he called me. He says, is anything going on at the site? Because the construction permit expires soon. So I went over there to look, and really, the construction permit expires in 2 weeks, and unless the tower ferry shows up,
it's not going to build, is it?
It's not going to happen. But the interesting thing was, the station's off the air. And I said, nah. And I had called over there just for fun to say, I'll offer my services for free if it's a tech problem to put you back on. I've reached answering machines, never got a response. So I went over and made my way into the unkept field over there. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I found out was why they were off the air. There was the power company here calls it a breaker. They connect the high voltage line on top of the pole to the ground wire, and they pull the fuse first. Yeah. It's A, to prevent a static discharge from building up on that disconnected line, but B, if someone's stupid enough to climb the pole and try putting that fuse into a 13,000 volt line, it's going to blow immediately and also blow the guy off the pole. So apparently they haven't been paying the power bill. Yeah. And then interestingly, they refiled for the construction permit. So they don't have the money to pay the power bill, but they had $3,000 to $5,000 to refile.
Gotta wonder.
Well, I mean, these guys are off the air. Well, my attitude is if they're off the air, let's keep them off. They don't want to keep it on the air. Let somebody who could use the frequency use it, or just pack it in. And let this other station that would like to have some nighttime power get that nighttime power because they want to do something with it.
Yep. I don't know. It's a tough problem. It's a tough problem. And I think we should. Well, maybe we did see it coming, but people want to hold on to what they have, thinking that maybe someday it'll be worth something. It was kind of encouraging. I don't know, 10, 11, 12, maybe 15 years ago, when Clear Channel was buying up big AM stations, and it had those of us who owned AM stations thinking, what do they see? What do they see really valuable? Because it seemed like they were paying some pretty top dollar for some powerful stations in out of the way places. I don't know. I'm thinking Casper, Wyoming, maybe other places that seem out of the way, but big signals. Don't know. Didn't seem to pan out well. Hey, coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Chris Tobin is going to be regaling us with stories of celebrity home studios. And that's going to be interesting. Tom, you think of what you want to tell along those lines, too. I'm Kirk Harnack. You're watching This Week in Radio Tech, or listening to it on the GFQ Network. You're welcome to go to gfqnetwork.com and check out our show and other shows there and watch, listen, or subscribe. If you subscribe, you get automatic downloads of this and other podcasts, and you can keep your device with it's a Google Nexus tablet, an iPad, a phone, an Android phone, an iPhone. Keep it up to date. Keep your latest podcast right there. It's a great way to make sure you always have the latest one at your convenience. Our show is brought to you by Telos and the Telos HX6 talk show system. Listen, I'm really hot on this subject. You got to have content that people want to listen to. And one of the best ways to create compelling content is to put callers on the air. Now, not necessarily just just any dumb cluck from the country. I shouldn't have said that. Not just anybody who can dial your number, but you can get compelling callers on the air. You can get great guests on the air. Heavens, we've had some great guests on this show. You can get great guests on your radio station, on your podcast, on your TV show. Bring them in by phone. Ask them questions. Do a show with the mayor, with the stockbroker. Do a show with a doctor or a panel of doctors, a medical show. Man, when I got started in AM radio, 30 years ago, we were doing all that kind of stuff. We'd have doctor panels, and people would call in on Wednesday nights to ask the doctor a question. We have legal advice programs. And of course, there's still plenty of network programs and some local ones too. But if you run a station, if you are a content provider, if you do a podcast, take some phone calls. We're going to start taking phone calls on this show. We're going to eat our own dog food and take phone calls on this show. And hey, maybe other shows will follow suit. I know there are other shows on the GFQ network that take phone calls, and they are compelling. They give the host, they let us know what's on people's minds, probably as well as the chat room does. So the way to do that, get some phone lines, whether they're SIP or ISDN or POTS, and get you a phone system like the Telos HX6. Here, I got one right here behind me. If I move my microphone out of the way, this is the Telos HX6 right here. It is not expensive. 6 phone lines coming in. I've got mine being fed by a SIP adapter. I'm bringing these phone lines into my office via SIP. One of these lines is my Google Talk line. It actually uses the Jabber protocol to connect with Google Talk. There's another one in here that's coming in from, of all places, Magic Jack. Quality's not real high, but you know what? If you had to do it, you could do it. And you can get perfectly good quality G711 phone calls from any SIP providers. That's one way to do it. The phones, here we go. This is a VSET 6 phone. This one is running powered over Ethernet. See, there's the cable, PoE, power over Ethernet. It's actually being powered by a little PoE switch that I have back behind me. And there you go. Look at this. I made up a radio station call letter, or for me, what is this? KTEL for KTELOS, lines 1 through 4. And then there's the KTEL hotline. So you can set all this stuff up in a matter of even if you haven't done it before, a couple hours at the most. I think I did it in about 10 minutes. You can have phones on your system that will let you do call screening if you want to do that. Other phones will let you control the calls, put them right on the air. The HX6 and the Telos VSET 6. This is what you want to look at on the telos-systems.com website. Also, if you happen to have an Axia console, any of them, you get to save a little money on your phone system. Instead of the HX6, you can check out the IQ6. It's exactly the same as the HX6, but it doesn't have any audio connectors on the back. It's only live wire. So the back of the cabinet on the IQ6 is very simple. Power, Ethernet, phone lines. That's it. On the back of the HX6, you also have GPIO connections and a total of 5 XLR connectors. So you've got all the electronics inside to support that. Check them both out at telos-systems.com. The HX6 and the IQ6 and the beautiful, cool VSET 6. Put some callers on the air. Let's get Tradio going.
You just disappointed me, Kirk.
Well, how's that?
I thought you were selling. I thought you were selling albums. You have a K-Tel line. You can tell it's K-Tel. They yell.
That's right. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! Hey, we used to take callers on the air with 2 single line hybrids, and it was just terrible. They weren't screened. We would take whoever called in. What a mess! Small town Tradio or swap shop. But do it right. Do it right. We're gonna start doing that here at GFQ. And get some callers on the air. All right, this week in Radio Tech number 184, Chris Tobin and I were having dinner a few nights ago, and Chris was telling me some interesting stories about celebrities who wanted to put in a home studio so they could stay home and do their radio show. Chris, where would you like to start? I just heard story after story.
Well, which one did you like which one stood out in your mind? I'm curious.
It's got to be the Bill O'Reilly story that stood out the most. That was just fascinating. You know, I'm a little ambivalent about Mr. O'Reilly. I like some things he says, but yeah, he's a bully. I do think he pushes people around unnecessarily. I don't always agree with him. Sometimes I agree with him a lot. So, but he's an interesting character. I mean, he's physically a big guy. He's a little intimidating looking, and he can. Man, he can tongue lash you. You know, I mean, he can be mean and rude, but I think he can also be nice. So you did a studio in home for Mr. O'Reilly.
Yeah, it was a very straightforward setup. He was looking. This is when he launched his radio show many years ago, and because his TV show didn't always tape every day of the week, he wanted the opportunity to be able to do his radio show, which was every day live from a location off-site. So we started with his home first. And it was interesting. He's a character, and like everybody else, you can agree or disagree. You know, the best thing is the fact that you have the opportunity to do that, disagree or agree. And went out to his home, set up the ISDN, very standard stuff, headphone, microphone, nothing fancy, and started doing things and just tried to keep away because I'm the engineering guy and he's the talent and he has other things to worry about than me putting in equipment in his room. And all of a sudden, he starts talking to me about just, current affairs and getting my opinion. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to set up your ISDN headset mic and get ready for things for your show coming up in about 2 hours. And now you want to talk current affairs with me. Okay, you know what? I'm like saying to myself, okay, here's this 6'2" Bill O'Reilly in his home, taking it easy, kicking back with a coffee. And I'm like, and he's talking to me about the politics of the day. What my opinion is of the president, or what my opinion of what's going on in Europe. I'm like, I'm saying to myself, how do I go down this path without finding myself either on his radio show at some point, thrown out of the house, screaming at me about something, and then my boss finds out that I've pissed off basically Bill O'Reilly because I was just there to set up an ISDN and we talked politics. He didn't like my opinions. So I went down the path of, hey, what the hell? What do I got to lose? It's only Bill O'Reilly. So we started talking. And before we know it, we're going at it. I'm actually like, not debating, but just, sort of going, well, I understand where you're coming from, but do you really think it makes sense? People should be accountable for their actions, and that's really just a ridiculous way to do a solution. You're basically giving a person an out or an excuse to get away with murder, get away with this and that. He just looks at me, and he's looking down at me because I'm sitting down, and he's sort of standing up at a high stool. And he goes, I like that, but you know what? You're wrong. And he starts pointing. It was like I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. I'm in a corner of the room. I don't know what I'm going to do now. And oh, look, my phone's ringing. It's the office. They want to know how we're doing with the ISDN. I pick up. I said, Mr. Riley, can you just one? He goes, yeah, go ahead, take a call. I go, hello, yeah, what's up? Yeah, we're almost done. And all of a sudden, Bill starts yelling, and he starts going into his rant because we just go. He just liked the fact that I pushed back. And my boss is like, what's going on? I was like, oh, he's okay. He's talking to some producer, I think, back at Fox. It has nothing to do with us. He's like, really? Sure sounds like he's yelling at you. I said, no, we're in the same room. We're fine. Don't worry about it. Listen, we'll be dialing in the test in about 5 minutes. I'll call you back. Click. Hang up the phone. He just looks at me and is like, really? All right. I understand. I see what you have to do. Set everything up. I said, Mr. O'Reilly, would you sit down? Can we do a quick test? Of course, at that point, that's like the softball. I just gave him the opportunity to beat the hell out of me with the guys back at the office, because now he's in front of a microphone, connected back to the network operations. Needless to say, the vice president, I think it was vice president of programming for the network, is at the studio end. Everything goes well, and they're talking to him back and forth. He's talking to his radio producer, the call screener, everything is great. And then somebody blurbs out, is everything to your liking with your setup? There's a pause. I'm listening on the headsets going, oh boy, here it comes. This is it. And he goes, everything is great. The only problem is I don't like the politics of your engineer. I'm like, oh boy. Oh, this is not going to be good. And the guys at the other end are going, well, neither do we. That's why we sent him out to you. We figured he'd piss you off.
Neither do we.
So that ends. I leave. His wife is very, very kind. She offered me coffee. We all talked. At the end of the installation, he was very happy. He was like, listen, I really enjoyed it. You're one of the few people that seem to push back. I appreciate it. You treated me like a human being. I'm like, well, you are. I said, last I checked, you had 2 legs and 2 arms. I said, I don't see any antlers sticking out of your head or little things like, my favorite Martian. And he laughed. And I left. That was it. Several weeks go by. He decides he wants to go on the road somewhere, do a show on the road radio.
Yeah.
He calls his people. His people call my office, my boss. Guess who has to go out to Los Angeles to set up to oversee his remote broadcast at another radio station? Me. Why? Because I'm the only one that's willing to talk back to him.
What, he asked for you?
Yeah.
That's great.
It was fun. But what the moral behind the story is, when you're working with people like, I'll use the name Bill O'Reilly, Laura Ingram, G. Gordon Liddy, Peter Jennings, people I've worked with, Charles Gibson, just name a few. Okay, I'll name drop. But for the story, you have to remember their name is on the marquee. And this is what I was saying to Kurt when we were out last week eating. And when their name is on the marquee, you have to make sure it goes right. So if you're building a home studio or setting up on location, you have to make sure everything is going to work. Because if something goes amiss, no one's going to look at you, the engineering guy. They're going to look at the guy's name on the marquee or the woman's name on the marquee and go, what the devil's wrong with that person? Why can't they get their act together?
Yeah.
They don't accept that. And I'll tell you another one. Working with George Stephanopoulos, setting up his home, same thing. He, great guy, got in a conversation. It was a hoot, just laughed, we talked. But his thing was, I'm worried. What if something goes wrong? Because I can't have people thinking I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Just press this button. Your producer will talk to you. As long as you can hear your producer and the cues coming back on the return audio, you're fine. If that disappears, here's my advice to you, okay? My little bit of 2 cents. If you stop hearing the return audio, immediately assume that you've lost your connection and dial the speed dial on that phone to the engineering tech center. That's all.
Yeah.
Because if you did lose the connection, they will know, they'll expect to hear from you. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Sure enough, George went off, did his stuff from home, was very confident, very happy, sent a letter to my boss saying, best advice I ever got from an engineering type, appreciate it, good guy, whatever, keep him around. I wound up doing Peter Jennings, Charles Gibson, Diane Sawyer, and several others. So again, just be yourself, be smart about what you're doing, and let them be an arrogant, pompous, whatever. That's their thing. That's what they are, right? Bill O'Reilly.
Well, yeah, they gotta have chutzpah to get where they got. That's part of it.
Exactly. But they have the right to their views, just like you and I do, as we do on the Twirt Show or anywhere else. We're out at a bar. If Andrew and I at Press 195 by the GFQ studios, and we're having a good time, barking about politics or current affairs or idiots in the business, so be it. That's just your opinion. You're allowed to do it. Bill O'Reilly's a great guy. I watched him at I went to a New York Press Club session he did. He spoke at the Press Club in New York City last year, and he basically let it out. He says, look, folks, I know I can be a real SOB. I know I push and probably make a spectacle of somebody as my guest. But you know what? You know that this is what I'm about, and I'm not going to hold back. So if you can't take it, don't come. And as we know, he has many people he invites that don't come on the show. Yeah. Story going back even farther with that same line of thinking, Don Imus. Right? We all know Don Imus, or heard of him, I hope.
Yeah.
Many years ago, he was invited to do a roast down at the National Press Club in Washington. I thought it was a great roast. I thought he did exactly what I expected because he's Don Imus. The next day, the National Press Club, I think it was, or some news agencies or news people were livid. They were upset. They were appalled at what happened. And I said, well, you invited Don Imus to roast the president, because that's part of the way it works, this thing. What did you expect him to say? It's a pleasure meeting you. I hope the daisies on the veranda grow well. And it was a great job you did before Congress with the State of the Union last month. No, it's Don Imus. He's going to say stuff you probably don't want to hear. Don't invite him. Okay? Maybe I'm just being practical, but that's what I'm trying to show is that's what they are. But if you have the honor or the pleasure to work with these guys, and it is it's a treat to be able to work with these folks and learn, see what they do. Do it right. That's all. That's. And then I had one with Dan Rather too. I think. Did I talk about Dan Rather? I think we did.
Yeah, you mentioned you were fixing
Dan Rather
something
was a cool guy
under the counter. Yeah.
Yeah, I was working. We're at the Network Operations Center. We had a studio where Dan did his radio show, his radio update daily for the network, CBS News radio affiliates. And one of the engineers called me into the studio and said, "Hey, we're having an issue with the headphone amp, something simple." So I said, "Oh, what's the problem?" And we heard it. And I was like, "Oh, it was a mic preamp." I said, "Oh, I know what that is. We just got these new mic preamps, really good, sweet, like 150 dB noise floor, the whole bit. So just dynamic range was great. But there was a setting on it you had to select depending on the microphone, dynamic or condenser." So underneath the console, I said, "Oh yeah, here's the problem. Let me get someone hand me a greenie." We're all familiar with greenies in the audience, I hope. The 1/8 inch flat blade, green-handled screwdriver? Okay, good. Just checking. And I reach up, you reach up on the counter, and somebody hands me the screwdriver. I say, "Oh, great, thanks." And I fix it, and I pop out, and it's Dan Rather. I said, "Oh, Mr. Rather, I'm sorry. Is it your time to do your show?" He's like, No, I got time. Go ahead. You needed a screwdriver. I thought I'd give it to you." I was like, "Thank you. It's kind of you to take time out of your day to hand me a screwdriver while I'm working. I appreciate that." He chuckled. He's like, "Oh, that's pretty good. I like that." I said, I got to be a little humorous. You got a busy man. Your schedule's tight, and you got a network show that starts in an hour and a half. So, you got to get ready for it. I leave the booth. He goes, sits down, gets his scripts. He's reading. He's writing he writes all this stuff. And I guess it's his handler or a producer or somebody comes up to me in the control room, and you can see through the glass me and this woman talking, and Dan Rather's on the other side of the glass. And she just says to me, "You never talk to him directly without first seeing me. You understand?" I'm like, "Well, I understand that you're upset, but you need to understand something. I was underneath the counter. I could not see him. He chose to answer my question that I threw out to the people in the room and assisted on his own accord. I can't argue with that. If that's what he chooses to do, then so be it. If you have a problem with it, you need to talk to him." He gets up. I was livid. I was like, "You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to anybody like that. I don't care who he is." I said, "I've worked down at the White House. I've worked in Washington. And people don't do that even, that way." So he comes out of the booth. He goes, "Is there a problem? Are we okay? Is there something wrong?" I just turned to him and said, "No, everything is just fine. I was just explaining to your assistant the finer art of how we manage radio shows here at the network, and sometimes you have to be prepared for a delay."
Oh, so you covered for her bad behavior to Dan Rather. You covered for her.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because why should I'm not going to throw it under the bus because, again, it's karma. And somewhere down the road, we're working in the same building. We cross paths every day.
Yeah.
Why burn the bridge? But I made it clear that I'm not going to take gruff. And you know what, though? Every time we needed something, I could make a call. There was no issue. So, you gotta roll with it. And, Tom knows this. Tom's worked at a network. He's managed operations with talent. He knows all too well the same thing. And Tom's probably got some good stories, too.
Tom, that puts you in the spotlight. You worked for years at WOR, had lots of people through there, common household names.
Yes, sir.
Joey Reynolds.
Yeah.
Joey. Oh my God, the all night party.
Real.
But you know what's funny? Joey's a great guy, and believe it or not, I've known Joey since I've been about 3 years old.
Yeah.
Because he was on WDRC in Hartford around that time. I grew up around the corner from where the radio station was, and my mother used to win things off his show all the time. And he kind of recognized the name, and when I told him about that, he actually pulled my mother's name up from memory.
Oh, my God.
Because she would go to the station to pick up the prizes, and if he was there, he'd come out and say hi. But I'm involved with this with this program on the weekend. It's Ron Ananian, the Car Doctor Show. It's an independently syndicated car show. So if anybody's listening and needs a car show on the weekend, give me a call. Little commercial there. But anyway, we're renting a studio right now. We're building a studio in Ron's house, but we're renting a studio, and we're sitting there on the air one day doing the show, and I was running the board. I usually don't run the board. I was running the board, and I look up through the glass, and I look again. Who's standing outside the window? Joey Reynolds. At this station, and nobody's seen Joey in a couple of years. So he gets through. He was going to be a guest on a program on the radio station where we're renting the studio, and he's down in the kitchen, and he gets me, he gets Ron, and we all go down there. And he's sitting there, and he's holding court, telling stories of the past and the whole bit. Finally, the poor guy who's hosted the show, it's like 15 minutes to airtime. He comes down and pokes his head in the kitchen. Mind if I borrow Joey? We don't mind. He kind of borrowed us. and poor Joey just sitting there. But many moons ago, when I was a young buck in the business, I was working production one summer at it was a WDRC in Hartford. And we had a car dealer in the Hartford area, a Chevy dealer, and he ended up somehow getting, Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson is the spokesperson for his dealership. Don't ask me how. But anyways, so they had done several television commercials. So he comes by the station with Reggie Jackson. And of course, I'm sitting in the production room, and we sit down. And he hands Reggie this copy, and Reggie kind of looks at it. I punch play and record, figuring we'll do a false take or whatever. He does the worst read I have ever heard in my life. Puts the copy down and says, "That's it. See you later." And I said, "That was a great level check." I said, "Please sit down." What are you talking about? You take that, you splice it. I said, No. I said, let's get something straight. I says, I don't tell you how to swing a bat. I said, I don't tell you how to catch a ball. You don't tell me how to do audio production. I said, now sit down and read the spot like you mean it this time. And he went, yes, sir. Sat down and read the spot. and same thing like, Chris with Dan's producer. I mean, his handler came in. You don't talk to him that way. I said, yes, I do. I says, I got a client to protect. I said, that spot was horrendous the first take he did. I said, the second time he did it right.
Yeah,
what the heck?
Yeah.
And most of these guys, most of these people, I should say, if they're legitimate in what they do, they will take what you've just done to them and go, you know what, you're right, I was being ridiculous and you put me in my place. Touche.
Right, and I didn't I didn't by any means I wasn't disrespectful, but it was like, look, I'm doing my job. You got a job to do too. But, I don't play baseball. If I get out in the diamond, I expect you're going to help me. I'm here to help you, and I'm telling you that sucked. Real blunt. But another CBS personality, Charles Osgood, when I worked at WTIC, he came to town. First things first, many people don't know this about Charles Osgood. He is a musician. He plays piano, and we had a small piano in the studio. He insisted on sitting down with the morning guys, and he played a ditty. But his producer who came in was actually quite funny. Charles wrote this, great guy to work with. He's a real nice guy. He was New York. The show fed. I'm going to say it fed at 35 past the hour. Maybe it was 25 past. It's 25 past. And there were certain time limits to hit. And we sat in the production room, and he wrote the copy, and he just couldn't get the thing to time out the way he did. And this wasn't before the days of, where I could throw it into something like Adobe Audition or Pro Tools and quickly time adjust it, and you'd never hear it. We were on tape. New York was starting to get nervous. This thing was literally 1 second over. It was like, and his producer went, who cares? Just feed it. Well, I fed it. And New York was insisting. It was, it was 10 seconds over. It's like, I'm sitting here watching the timer, guys. No. Then it was getting too, keep in mind, the thing feeds at 25 past the hour. It's 5 minutes of the hour, and New York's getting nervous. Feed it to us backwards, high speed. Okay. Racked it up backwards, ran at high speed. Well, that was still 10 seconds too long. Well, what did you expect? All we did was high speed. Anyway, it came down to 23 minutes past the hour, and they're still not happy. And I looked at his producer, and who looked at me, and Charles Osgood's standing there, and Charles Osgood got on the phone and said, "We're running it live."
Okay.
We ran the tape back live on the network from Hartford. It was it was my first real experience with doing anything network, but it was like I just sat there and was like, "Yeah, I'm watching the clock." It was it was cool, but just working with him, he was like, he was rolling his eyes. he looked at me. He's like, "Just feed the stupid thing live." Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Well, but as Chris Tobin said, it's their name on the marquee, and that's a great thing that you've got to remember. And sometimes we do have opportunities to work with celebrities. They've gotten to where they are by hook or by crook, by being really good, by being smart, right place, right time, whatever it may be. But it's their name on the marquee, and as engineers who have to help them do what they do, we got to make sure that nothing that we've done or left undone gets in the way of them delivering their product, which has their name written all over it, to the masses, the people, the two listeners, whoever it might be. That is really, really key.
And my first boss in this business drummed that into my head. The first year I worked in the business, that you do everything in your power to make this guy look good. Even if he's the biggest doofus in the world, you do what you can to make him look good and shine him up and make him fine, because it's his name on the marquee. People don't know who you are, and that stuck with me all these years. People like John Gambling, the morning man at WOR. His grandfather started the show. His father took it over. John took it over. There's basically been John Gambling, and they were all named John, by the way. John Gambling has been doing a morning show in New York City for 80 years. 3 different John Gamblings, but still.
Okay, all right.
You don't screw up his show. Yeah. And, he gets nervous whenever he's got to go on remote, except when I show up. And he just sits there and he smiles. He goes, "Tom's here." And he just, he does his thing, and he sits there, and his board operator shows up, and he knows when the board operator shows up, everything will be laid out properly. Everything's properly labeled on the board. I go over everything with the op. I sit there right with him for the first half hour of the show till he's comfortable.
Yeah.
And there's not a problem. Where some other people would just set him up and something would happen and he starts looking like an idiot on the air. Well, he knows that I'm not going to do that. And there are a lot of people in this business who won't let the guy look like a fool because he can't. It's your job to make him look good.
I hear you. Yeah, I had one with Peter Falk. You remember Peter Falk? He was a very famous actor. And I was working at a network operations facility, and we were doing satellite tours, which are interviews via satellite for the affiliates. So the affiliates dial up a phone coupler so they can talk to the celebrity at the network studio, and then over the satellite, the celebrity would answer the questions, so you can have nice, clean, studio quality responses to your questions. And I'm in the ops center checking on some, I think our uplinks at the time, the satellite uplinks. We had 56 channels up to the satellite. And I get this call from one of the studios, producer and board operator in the studio saying, "You've got to come to Studio 12. Studio 9. It's like, why? We have an issue. What's the issue? Somebody is smoking in the studio. I'm like, well, tell them not to smoke. Well, we've tried to. They won't listen. They're yelling at us. I'm like, well, then call security. What are you calling me for? We don't know who else to call. All right, fine. I'll come down. So I walk down the hall. I go into the control room. I look through the glass, and there's Peter Falk. I'm like, okay, so why am I here again? Well, so-and-so in the other office, which is the head office, the engineering office, my boss's office, said you should talk to him. Really? I guess I must have pissed somebody off, so it's my turn to get shot. Okay, fine. So I go into the room. I said, Mr. Falk, how are you? He's like, who are you? I said, I'm a manager of technical operations for the network, and I've been asked to touch base with you about the smoking condition you've created. He goes, so what? Why does the guy have an issue with me smoking? I said, well, it's not us. We don't have an issue with you. The city of New York does, and the fire department does. So if you don't mind, could you just lay off on the cigarette for now, and then we'll let you take care of what you need to do in the hallway. How's that? He's like, really? All right, maybe I'll do that. So me being the wise ass New Yorker that I am, as I'm leaving the studio control room hall doorway, I stop. I turn around, and I do this. One more question, though. Anyone who's a fan of the series Columbo, and I pulled out a little notepad in my hand, and I just turned to him. I said, by the way, is that cigarette filtered or not filtered? He looks at me, breaks out laughing to the point where he's like, don't go, stay here with me. That is, I haven't had that done to me in years. People in the control room are like, they don't even know what to say because I have just done a Columbo mannerism to the guy who was Columbo. And I broke the ice. The guy stopped smoking. He put out everything. He apologized. He the whole bit. And I just walk out of there going, whew, all right, there's another one we missed. And once again, I get called down to the office, and the senior VP of engineering is like, I just got a call from the VP of news. The news division manages the satellite tours. He tells me that Columbo was visited by Columbo. Now, is there any truth to that story? And I just look at him. I say, well, you know how stories go. They sometimes are based on myths. Sometimes they're just stories. Sometimes they're unfounded. All I can tell you is, yes, I was in the control room. Yes, Peter Falk was there. He is the character known as Columbo in many of his career. And I questioned him about his activities smoking in the room, and at that point I left. That's the story. He just looks at me and goes, that's what I thought. Okay, that's it. So, well, and then there was this other one I had, and again, to Tom's point, and the name is on the marquee. So you got to remember that when you're engaging in a conversation with a celebrity. You may know her name. You may know of her antics and her politics and her ability to engage people in talk shows. And this person was up in New York. She's normally based out of Washington. So we had our studio set up for her to do a show from the New York facility. And she had some issues with stuff in the booth. She starts hollering down the hallway, demanding somebody, fix this problem. She's having issues. Mind you, her show doesn't start for another hour and a half. And she needs somebody to take care of this immediately. Engineering is slacking. This is ridiculous. I can't have this, blah, blah, blah. So I get a call from the board operator, say, look, so-and-so's having an issue. You may have heard her yelling down the hall. I said, yeah, I can't miss it. I'm right down the hall. They want something done immediately. I said, who's they? Or her and her co-host. I said, well, that's nice. I said, we'll have whatever the problem resolved. What's the problem? They can't print out their script. Oh, yeah, that could be a problem, I guess. What time's the show? Oh, an hour and a half from now. Okay, I got you. Well, tell her we're working on it. I should have told the board operator, don't tell her that my name, told her that we're working on it. Because moments later, the door opened up again. Now my name is being screamed down the hallway to get my bum in gear to fix her problem. So at that point, I'm like, all right, fine. It's 5:30. How bad can this be? I hollered down the hallway, and I said, I'll get your problem solved as soon as I've figured out what it is you can't print. Because I just printed your script, and it looks just fine. Now you can wait, or you can have somebody else to call. And I go back into my office. 3 minutes later, she comes into my office, looks at me and goes, who the hell do you think you are? I'm like, I'm not nobody really. I just, VP of engineering for the network. I'm trying to make sure your show goes off without a hitch. You've got an hour before airtime, and you're yelling to my staff about some printer issue. I said, we got 3 other printers in there. We just need to know what you want to print. She stopped. She was like, all right, fine, I get it. Okay, no problem. She leaves. My boss walks in because his office is next to mine. And he goes, did you just engage in a shouting match down the hallway here in the CBS Broadcast Center, down the hall from the CBS VP of News to a talk show host that many people might know the name if I say Laura Ingraham? Yeah. I said, yes, I did. He goes, what were you thinking? I said, I was thinking that she needs to be told that we are working on it and she doesn't have to yell, and I could yell just as loud as her and nothing will happen, just yelling. He just looked at me, he's like, you're crazy. I said, nah, it'll be fine. Trust me, we'll be fine. I've been down this road before. I got credit on her show, and the next time she came to New York, guess who she wanted to see first? So.
Yep. You got credit on the show. That was good. Okay.
I got credit on the show, yeah.
And recognized she had a problem and stood up to her. Yep.
Yeah. But every time I went to Washington, because she worked out of our bureau in Washington for the talk show, I'd come down, see her, we'd laugh, she'd call me into the room. Everybody else is looking at me like, who's this guy? How come he can tell? I did the same thing with G. Gordon Liddy. You may know him from another infamous issue. Yeah. He too is, he's a hoot. You know, if he was allowed to carry a gun, he would. But he was another one that just loved anybody who would just, basically go toe-to-toe. That's just the way it goes. But, I've worked with some good people, as Tom has as well, and they get it. The ones that don't get it, well, then they deserve to get slapped. I mean, that's just the way it goes.
You know who gets it, Chris? It's the ones who are the real pros.
Exactly.
The ones who are the real pros have been in the business a little while, and, especially when you demonstrate that you're looking out for their back.
Yes.
And they sit there, and that's when they go, I get it. You're cool. Next time I'm in town, we're having a beer. Not a problem.
I mean, I have put a lot of folks, I've been on remote locations and gotten people on the air and immediately on a breaking news story and made things happen like that because you only have one shot at a live, breaking news story. And you know what? After they realize what happened, they're like, oh, you know what? He gets it. Cool. And like Tom pointed out with his, experience, when they found out that he was on location, they were calm. They knew everything was going to happen the way it should.
Yeah.
And that's what really people should strive for. I mean, we in engineering, sometimes, we don't talk to the adults properly. And, and we're left in the back room. And that's, to our own fault.
Guys, this has been fun. We got to wrap it up. We've had some good stories and a few topical conversations. This has been This Week in Radio Tech, episode 184. And Chris Tobin has joined us from Barrie, Ontario at the CCBE show there. Chris, thanks for taking the time and trouble to get hooked up from the far northern hinterlands.
No problem.
My friends, at this moment of sadness...
Fireside chat. I just thought it'd be nice to have FDR talk.
I want to talk with you.
Don't be alarmed, but the room is on fire behind you. But anyway.
And hey, Tom Ray, glad to have you back. Good microphone. You sounding good, and glad you were able to join us even a little bit late. Thanks for your contributions to our show.
Well, you're welcome. And I apologize for being late. I just couldn't get Skype to come up. But anyway, it's good to be back. A lot of fun, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Good deal. And Andrew Zarian for producing and switching our show and making us all look so good in New York. Appreciate you being here on the GFQ network. Andrew does equally fine work on all of his shows, so check them out on the GFQ network. This has been This Week in Radio Tech, brought to you by my employer, folks at Telos Systems and the Telos HX6 and IQ6 talk show systems. They will add creativity and compellingness to your content. Check them out at telos-systems.com. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye, everybody.
That's all the bandwidth we can pilfer this week. Another twit has propagated, and all the transmitters and audio equipment live happily ever after, thanks to the handsome engineer and his kind, benevolent care. We'll be back next week.
Lord willing and the creek don't rise.
This Week in Radio Tech. Subscribe to iTunes and you'll never miss a show. Search for This Week in Radio Tech in the iTunes Store. Soliciting is strictly encouraged. If you like today's show, tell a friend. If you didn't like it, we were never here. Kirk Harnack's wardrobe provided by the Salvation Army and the Red Cross Disaster Relief Services. Hair and makeup provided by Penelope Garcia Hernandez Weinberg.
He's unique, wouldn't you say?
I just want to get it over with.
This ends this transmission. Tango, Whiskey, India, Romeo, Tango. Signing off. Okay.